County City Comprehensive Planning meeting is called to order at 6:05 p.m. on April 13th, 2021. On behalf of the Leon County Commission, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to our mayor and city commissioners of the city of Tallahassee. Well, let's get right to it. Our first order of business is number one, joint public hearings on the 2021 cycle comprehensive plan amendments and concurrent rezonings. Mr. Deputy County Administrator, okay. Mr. Artie White, would you please take it from here?
Thank you, Chairman, Mayor, Commissioners. Tonight we have the joint hearing on the 2021 comprehensive plan amendment cycle. Tonight there'll be 4 comprehensive plan amendments. 2 of those will have rezonings, and we'll kind of go through each of those one by one. There'll be 3 map amendments. Those are amendments to the future land use map, and 1 text amendment, and I'll kind of go through those. I know we had a workshop on this, so I'll move through most of the material fairly quickly, stopping a few points to provide additional information based on the workshop, but otherwise I'll try to move through it fairly quickly. This is the overall schedule. I bring this up. Tonight is the first public hearing for those amendments that I note that are transmittal hearings. It'll be an opportunity to send an amendment to the state for review. For those amendments, the adoption would be on June 8th. For the other amendments that I note are adoption amendments tonight, they would just be adopted and not come back on June 8th. But I'll specify when we get to each amendment, just kind of noting that this is the first of 2 public hearings for some of the amendments. And just kind of note for just kind of everyone in general, especially the public that may be watching, the comprehensive plan provides very specific guidance for how staff is to evaluate proposed comprehensive plan amendments. These largely come in from the public, and we review them. Policy 1.4.5 of the land use element says that we review text amendments based on the overall intent of the adopted goals, objectives, policies of the comprehensive plan. And then for future land use map amendments, we evaluate those against, for consistency against the adopted goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And those are the parameters within which we work. So just kind of note that staff has a very specific role in evaluating proposed amendments and making a recommendation. The same goes with rezonings. It's the same policy. We note that our role as staff is to evaluate the proposed rezonings against the adopted goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, as well as the land use in which the property is located. And I'm just going to move on from there, but just noting that the comp plan provides very specific guidance for what we as staff do when we evaluate proposed amendments and rezonings. The first amendment is a text amendment to the mobility element. This would create a new policy that essentially adopts the CRTPA's Tallahassee, Leon County Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan by reference. This is the policy that would be adopted. As we evaluated this against the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, we noted that it is consistent with the overall mobility element goal, goal number 1 of the mobility element, the complete streets policy, objective 1.2 of the mobility element, and policy 1.2.4. And if you have questions about these, I'm happy to slow down and go through them, but I know we talked about it at the workshop, so I'm just kind of moving through those fairly quickly. When it was taken to the local planning agency, both staff and the local planning agency recommended that this be found consistent with the comprehensive plan and therefore recommended that they be adopted, the policy be adopted. And so tonight, option 1 is the staff recommendation that's consistent with the local planning agency, and that's to conduct the transmittal public hearing on the 2021 cycle comprehensive plan text amendment, TTA 2020-004, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, and transmit the proposed amendment to the state land planning agency and review agencies. This is one that does require both voting by the county commission and the city commission. And this is the one that would go to the state for review and come back on June 8th for adoption. And so staff recommendation is option 1.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Deputy County Administrator, do we have any speakers on this item?
We have no speakers, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Just one quick logistical item here, and you may know this from the last time, but for our mayor and city commissioners, when you would like to speak on the microphone, please hold the button down. As my understanding, in order to be heard and turn the mic on, you need to hold that middle button down while you speak and hold it down. Oh, really? Okay. So Vice Chair Proctor says just turn it on by putting it once, or press it down once, and apparently you guys will figure it out. Now, this first item here, of course, is a city and county item that we will both vote on separately. What I'd like to do differently than the last time is actually have debate or discussion amongst all of us together. I think that might have a more constructive discussion. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Mr. Mayor.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No comment.
Okay. And then for the county commissioners, since the city commissioners and the mayor do not have the same speakers queue software that we use, if I could ask you just to kind of flag me visually, I'd appreciate it. Any speakers? Any motions on the floor that people wish to introduce?
Second.
Okay. So on the county side, Commissioner Maddox has moved to staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the county side signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor, I'll hand it over to you for the city vote.
Is there a motion on the city side?
No light coming on. But I'd move option one.
Second.
Mr. Mayor.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. White, please let's move on to the next item, please.
Okay. The next amendment is the Aenon Church Road Amendment LMA 2021-03. This was a privately initiated comprehensive plan amendment. It is located in unincorporated Leon County. That means that this one would only be voted on by the county commission. It's approximately 51.1 acres in size. That constitutes a large-scale map amendment. So this is one that would be transmitted to the state, and then the actual adoption hearing, if the county commission so chooses to transmit it to the state, would be June 8th. This is a map amendment to change it from urban residential 2 on the future land use map to government operational and industry and mining. Note that when the request came in, they requested it go from urban residential 2 to industry and mining. Because of the easement that we discussed at the workshop, staff was recommending that the amendment be revised so that that transmission line easement would stay in government operational. With this, there would be on June 8th a rezoning as well, and like the future land use map, it would go from R3. That's a residential only zoning district that allows 4 to 8 units per acre. It would go to the mining district, and the easement would stay government or go to government operational as the zoning. I know there was a little bit of question because the staff recommendation and the local planning agency recommendation differ, so I'll quickly go through some of that just as background information. Note that our comprehensive plan in the glossary does have a definition of compatibility. It's a condition in which land uses or conditions can coexist in relative proximity to each other in a stable fashion over time such that no use or condition is unduly negatively impacted directly or indirectly by another use or condition. We'll note that this is consistent with the statutory definition of compatibility, what you would find in Chapter 163. As we kind of go through that and see how that term is used, Policy 2.1.1 in the land use element does talk about protecting existing residential areas from encroachment, and then it includes a list of ways in which that would be accomplished. For this specific amendment, it's item E, prevention or mitigation of off-site impacts from industry and mining uses. The other items are more specific to other types of uses. I bring this up because this is the policy that the local planning agency made their determination on. They looked at that first sentence, protecting existing residential areas from encroachment of incompatible uses that are destructive to the character and integrity of residential development. As staff, we looked at the entire policy and kind of noted that that doesn't prohibit industry and mining, but it does note that at some point they would have to, an applicant asking for industry and mining adjacent to a residential neighborhood would have to prevent or mitigate off-site impacts. Though it doesn't really specify here how that would happen, it just kind of notes that that is something that would have to be accomplished, and that would be accomplished at the site plan level. As we kind of read through the comp plan, objective 2.2 notes that the comprehensive plan will establish policies for guiding and guidance for mapping future land use categories. That essentially helps us know what to look at when we're trying to make a determination with something being consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And it basically says, there will be land use categories, and those land use categories will include standards for where to map these land use categories. So we looked at residential preservation policy 2.2.3. This is the designation of the neighborhood adjacent to the subject site. That specifically says that at a minimum, the following factors shall be considered to determine whether a proposed development is compatible with existing or proposed low-density residential uses and with the intensity, density, and scale of surrounding development within residential preservation areas. Essentially, it says when we're looking at whether development is compatible with residential preservation, we'll look at things such as proposed uses, intensity, density, scale, building size, mass, bulk, height and orientation, lot coverage, lot size, configuration. I could go on, but you can read it. These are predominantly things that would be determined at the site plan level, not at the comprehensive plan level. And so staff looked at this and noted again that when an applicant with industry and mining as a land use category goes in for a site plan and then ultimately a permit, they would need to, at that point, demonstrate these characteristics to determine whether it's compatible or not. The same thing with policy 2.2.28, the industry and mining land use category. This is the land use category that the applicant has requested. It does say that whenever possible, noise, vibration, smoke, dust, and particulate matter, odor, and lighting resulting from these uses will be prevented. If they cannot, they'll be mitigated. And then the special condition is that the site plan must demonstrate the protection of adjacent non-industry and mining properties through development standards outlined in the Land Development Code. So I know that's a lot of information. Essentially what it says in the comp plan is you'll have to achieve compatibility, and that is going to be based on applying Land Development Code regulations to the site plan. That is something that happens basically 2 steps after the comp plan amendment. You have the comp plan amendment, the rezoning, and then a site plan and then permitting. And when staff is evaluating consistency with the comp plan, these are the policies we have to use, and these policies tend to put the responsibility on the site plan. Because it does that, when we were meeting with the local planning agency and going through that public hearing process, they did ask for additional information. They actually continued the public hearing from the February meeting to the March meeting and requested some additional information. I'm providing that tonight because it may be helpful to you as well, since it was helpful to the local planning agency. First, they wanted us to look at the overall area. And so you see the subject site and existing mines on one side and an existing neighborhood on the other side. And so there was lots of conversation with the local planning agency about is this compatible with the neighborhood, but also what do you do about the other mines in the area? And since this is kind of sandwiched in between those two uses, what is the appropriate use for this? Is it residential as it's currently zoned? Is it mining? When it comes to that, that's not a question that staff looks at in terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan. We're looking at those goals, objectives, and policies. But do note that this was something that the local planning agency was interested in, and so we provided this. We also had lots of conversations with the county's Development Support and Environmental Management Department to look at what do the Land Development Code regulations specify in terms of those things that the comp plan would call for. And I know we went over this in the workshop, but this is basically a visual representation of what the Land Development Code would call for this site. Note that there's a utility easement, there's setbacks, there's buffers from the property line, as well as additional buffers from the residential area specifically, specific buffers as called for in the Land Development Code for the sinkhole and the water bodies. And note that this would require a natural features inventory before this would be finalized. This is just kind of conceptual at this point based on what we know. Staff recommendation was that this is found consistent with the Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, and because of that, we were recommending approval. The same with the rezoning, contingent upon the future land use map being adopted, finding the rezoning consistent and recommending approval. But as I noted, the local planning agency did not agree, and they are recommending that this is not found consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that the amendment is denied, as well as the rezoning. And so the staff recommendation on this is option 2, and if the county commission goes with option 2, this would be transmitted to the state for review and come back, and then the adoption would be June 8th. If you don't choose to transmit it, then we would not send it to the state for review, and it would not come back on June 8th. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Mr. Deputy County Administrator, do we have any speakers on this item?
We have no speakers, sir.
Great, thank you, sir. Now, again, this item, 1-2, is for county action only. Any discussion? Vice Chair Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, the Planning Commission does not support this and has turned it down. Staff has deviated from their recommendation. They did disclose that a vote by the Planning Commission was that we deny it. When we get a long talk and we see that map speaks for itself. And I believe Mayor Daley remembers and Commissioner Dozier remembers some years ago, a child died in one of those little pool of water that when it rains, they become an attractive nuisance. And we required fencing and protecting neighborhood children from the mines and this and that. And they showed us 3 or 4 mines on the map just now. And I think that all that talk that we just heard, like we were setting 2 ways of looking at it. We were either about to throw the Aenon Church Road community under the bus, and I wish Commissioner Jackson was here, or either we were merely presenting a narrative for which mining expansion could occur. And we might be doing both of those things. But given as much as the Planning Commission has offered a conservative vote that has no economic anything tied to it other than lifting first, is you're going to protect the mine in the interest of mining expansion, or is you going to protect the citizens in their neighborhood? We typically try to respect people who have made an investment in their homes and in their communities. We try to offset and keep away nuisances, intrusions that would mitigate the quality of life for them. And it appears to me that our Planning Commission has seen that this would likely mitigate the quality of life of people who put much of their earthly earnings into their homes in that neighborhood. And they have an expectation, though they may not have hired a lawyer, a lobbyist to come talk to us. And let's be real, that's not a part of Tallahassee that shows up with placards and T-shirts. They struggle to get by. But I have to believe that their home sites mean as much to them as neighbors who can afford to give that great showing to us and to move us. But I am as equally empathetic to them without one sign in this room. I've not received one phone call from anybody over there. But I have to believe that residential citizens in an area that, but for the geographic location of where they are, and but for the sociological category of who they are, this would not be before us. It wouldn't. This is why I would make the recommendation that we would not send this matter forward to the state, and make that as a motion in the interest of protecting citizens who are giving all they can to protect their little neighborhoods, and they need us to stand between them and the rest of the world.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. Any other comments, sir? Motions are made by Vice Chair Proctor to deny, to basically to not move forward with option number 2. It's been seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Dozier, you're next to speak, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think this is the time to talk about the policy more broadly. I think we may need to spend some more time understanding this in the future. It seems very clear to me, though, and I second the motion, and I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Proctor, that the Planning Commission was on the right track. The compatibility question with neighborhoods bordering 2 sides of this site is very concerning to me. I think, we've had compatibility questions come up before where it's one type of housing and lot size next to another type of housing and lot size. I mean, compatibility can be debated a lot of different ways. This one seems very, very concerning to me. And I would just say that if we can look at a mine this close to a neighborhood bordering 2 sides, I simply don't think it's compatible use. So in that way, I agree with the Planning Commission. The second part, and I guess, Artie, I've got a question for you here, just to make sure that I'm understanding this. It might be helpful for me if you brought up the map that showed the wetlands, that one. So in the item, it says that on these there is a lake on 3 parcels, wetlands in the middle, and a potential karst feature. And you also see signs of elevation change, potentially a collapsed sinkhole. I have that right, yes?
That's correct.
So if we would require, in addition to setbacks and buffers from the neighborhood, I noted from your list there, 35 feet from a sinkhole, 50 feet from a water body. I am baffled by where we would do mining on this property and not impact karst features, water body, or the lake. Lake, water body, and sinkholes. I know I'm not out there on site. I'm sure it's pretty large and they could have area, but the impact for mining around those features in that limited space, I guess I'm just wondering. You left all those decisions, and I'm glad you, as I told you in briefing, I'm glad you worked with DSM and talked to our staff over there, but you left all those decisions to be made after the natural features inventory and when it goes to site plan, correct?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So they could have very, very limited space on this property to mine at all. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. This applicant actually came in with 5 amendments, and because of various policies, we recommended denial on 4 of them. There was one of those that was completely encumbered with wetlands and other environmental features, and we had the same concern for that one and this one, and so we reached out to DSM to ask the question, is there any place on the site that could be mined? The answer for the other one was absolutely not. Nowhere on the site could be mined. On this one, it was, well, there's pieces here and here and here. So technically, there are places that can be mined, but it is not a large contiguous area. And so unlike the other amendment that we recommended denial because there was absolutely no place, this amendment, because of technically, yes, you could mine a portion of it, we recommended approval of it.
I'm going to have one more question for you in a second, but Mr. Chair, I ask for your indulgence here. I am asking a few questions because this is extraordinary for us to disagree with our staff, and I think we need to, for my part, really understand where we are and if we're going to move in this direction and deny, which I hope we do, this amendment. So related to this, how exactly would we delineate the boundaries of a sinkhole or a potential karst feature, and would mining activity potentially create more issues with karst features that were not identified or were adjacent even with that 35-foot buffer?
That's a question that we relied on DSEM, Development Support Environmental Management, to help us understand. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert in some of these areas.
I'll take you off the hot seat there, Artie. This is a question that, again, this is going to stay on my mind as we talk about water quality, our aquifer, everything else. I'm not sure how that happens, and I would like to understand it more later, but for our purposes right now, the compatibility is the first issue, and I think that's directly related to the comp plan. And conservation and protecting our water areas is also a critical component of the comp plan, correct?
It is, yes.
Thank you. And those would be my reasons, Mr. Chair, for supporting this motion and seeking a denial of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. I've got Commissioner Cummings, and then I'll wrap it up. Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask one question as it relates to schools. Do you know the proximity of this potential mining area to schools in the area? Did you all look at that?
I don't know what the closest school is, Commissioner, but it is at least a couple of miles away.
Okay. Was there any study done on any impact any of the fumes from the mining could have on individuals, school-aged children, or environment?
No, Commissioner, we do not do that kind of analysis as part of a proposed comp plan amendment. There may be some of that built into the permitting process, but in terms of looking at something at the high-level policy standpoint, we don't get to quite that level of detail, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Vice Chair Proctor, thank you for making this motion. I think it's the right decision, and I'm planning to support it. Thank you. All in favor of the motion as stated by Commissioner Proctor and seconded by Commissioner Dozier, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Jackson out of chambers, so the tally is 6-0. Thank you very much. Mr. White, would you please introduce the next item?
Absolutely. The next item is item LMA 2021-06, also known as the W.W. Kelley Road Amendment. This is one that was also privately initiated. It is also in unincorporated Leon County, so only the county commission would vote on this item. This is a small-scale amendment, so it would not be transmitted to the state, reviewed, and brought back. This one would be up for adoption tonight. And there will also be a concurrent rezoning as well. It's approximately 1.6 acres, and the proposal would take it from the rural land use category to the suburban land use category, rural being the yellow on the map, suburban being the purple. With that would also be the rezoning, as I noted. It would take it from rural to C2, which is the general commercial zoning district. As we evaluated this, we noted that the request is consistent with the suburban land use category. We noted that it is inside of the urban services area, and that it would also be consistent with the rural agriculture land use category, since that says that there would not be urban services provided to that, and yet it is within the urban services area. For the rezoning, we noted that the request C2 general commercial meets all the criteria for applying to this location. And so the staff recommendation for this is that both the comprehensive plan and the rezoning are found consistent with the Tallahassee County Comprehensive Plan. The local planning agency concurred with that. They also are recommending approval based on it being consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so for the comprehensive plan amendment portion, and we can do the rezoning separately, but the map amendment, staff recommendation is option 3.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Deputy County Administrator, are any speakers on this item?
The applicant's representative is here to answer any questions you may have, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. In the speaker's queue, again, this is for county action only. In the speaker's queue, I've got Commissioner Cummings and then Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I failed to turn
No
off my cue.
problem. No problem.
Sorry.
Commissioner Dozier, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was an interesting one, and I have heard from folks who keep it rural, others who had concerns, that their concerns have been satisfied, and I want to thank those representing the applicant for working through those issues. They also reached out to me, so I'm happy to make a motion. Is this option 3?
Yes,
Is that correct?
there's
Yes,
option
I'll make a motion to approve option 3. Thank you.
All right, thank you. A motion for option 3 made by Commissioner Dozier. Is there a second? Commissioner Welch, yes. All right. Vice Chair Proctor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dozier, I'm really queued up to hear what you had to say on this particular matter. Ms. White, this is a withdrawal, an erasure of the USA from this area. Is that accurate?
No, Commissioner, this area was already within the urban services area, so we're not moving the urban services area line. We're just approving an amendment that's already within the existing urban services area.
So what does this do with respect to the urban services area? Is it taking it away or withdrawing what had been there? I'm trying to understand the effect of what 3 does to the USA.
Commissioner, it would do nothing to the urban services area line. It would just note that because the site is already inside of the existing urban services, that it would be eligible for the infrastructure that would support more development than what rural would typically allow.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I see no other speakers in the queue. The option for number 3, made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Welch. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Jackson out of chambers. The tally is 6-0. Mr. White, would you please introduce the next item?
The next item is the concurrent rezoning for that same amendment. And so option 4 would be the staff recommendation, which would be to adopt the ordinance that would amend the official zoning atlas to change the zoning on the property.
Great. Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Deputy County Administrator, do we have any speakers on this item?
We have no speakers, sir.
All right. Thank you. The motion has been made for option 4 by Commissioner Dozier and seconded by Commissioner Maddox. Any discussion on the item? All those in favor say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Jackson out of chambers, so the tally is 6-0. The next 2 items, 1-5 and 1-6, are within the city's jurisdiction only, so I'm going to pass this on to Mayor Daley. Mayor Daley.
Excellent. You want to introduce the item?
Right. This is TMA 2021-002. It's also known as 1717 West Tennessee Street. That's the address of the property. It's a proposed amendment that was privately initiated. The parcel itself is 0.44 acres, though we're only looking at 0.2 acres of that site. The request is to take it from the university transition land use category to the suburban land use category. Like the previous amendment, this would also have a concurrent rezoning, and that rezoning would take it from university transition to commercial parkway. This is an aerial of the site. Some of you are familiar with it, the former Magic Fun Shop, the former original location of Proof, and a couple of other uses have moved into that building. But this would help facilitate redevelopment of that site, given some kind of strange parking configurations that exist today. When staff evaluated against the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, we noted that the request is consistent with the suburban land use category that's being requested and is on part of the site already. Noted that the application of the CP Commercial Parkway zoning district does meet the criteria. We paid special note that there are some things about locational criteria for commercial parkways, specifically being on urban arterial roadways with high traffic volumes. Tennessee Street meets that criteria. And then typically you would not have this within the MMTD, except for in certain circumstances. This does meet those criteria as well. And so based on that, the staff recommendation was to find both the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning consistent with the Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan. And because of that, recommend approval of the amendment. The local planning agency concurred with that, and they're recommending that the comp plan amendment and the rezoning are both adopted as well. For the city, I do have to read the ordinance titles into the record. So for the land use amendment, the amendment to the future land use map, it would be ordinance number 20-0-16, an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from the university transition land use category to the suburban land use category, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The staff recommendation on the map amendment is option 5. This would adopt the map amendment tonight.
Mr. Administrator, do we have any speakers on this item?
No, you don't, Mr. Mayor.
All right, motion for approval or comment?
Move acceptance.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by all those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0.
And the next item record, this would be ordinance number 21-Z-17, an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee, Florida, designating land as commercial parkway on the official zoning map from unit is option 6.
Mr. Administrator, any public comment on this item?
No, you don't, Mr. Mayor.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Been properly seconded by those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0.
And that was the final.
Mayor Daley, thank you very much. Mr. White, would you please introduce the next item?
Yes, Chairman. The next item is the consultant services for the land use and mobility element. Lots of conversation at the workshop on that, so I will be happy to answer any questions, but just note that option 1 is the staff recommendation. This would give us direction to select or release an RFP for consultants for the land use and mobility element. We'd bring the selection from the selection committee back for approval before moving forward with executing a contract. It would include the ability to add additional comprehensive plan elements as their direction is given to us and as they're budgeted. That was part of the discussion at the workshop. We would review proposed changes to the land use and mobility element for consistency with all the other elements of the comprehensive plan. As noted at the meeting, look at including the local colleges and universities as well. And as part of that, as we get underway with the process, we would be coming back to both commissions for budgeting purposes for land development code changes that would be required within what is going on. We would also look at targeted cleanup, very kind of specific cleanup to the other elements as part of the evaluation and appraisal review process that is required by the state every 7 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Dennis Smith, 1136 Maple Drive, Tallahassee, Florida. I work at FSU in the Department of Urban Regional Planning, direct Mark and Mary Ann Barnaby plan updates. And so I wanted to let you know that with the Mark and Mary Ann, so I know that there was a lot of discussion about how you might be able to engage the university and have us do the work, or through your contractor, have us support the overall process. But I think there's a real advantage to having the university involved because we are tapping into the students. And a lot of what we're talking about with the particular plan elements interacts with the students' lives on a really important basis, where they live, how they get around. So I think there's a great opportunity there. Plus, I think the students really have some great new ideas that they could bring to bear on this. So again, we're here as a resource, and I think that's pretty much it for my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. I appreciate you being here. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is a virtual speaker, Commissioners. It's Ms. Danielle Irwin, and we're bringing her up on the screen now.
Ms. Irwin, thank you very much for logging in. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danielle Irwin, 3185 Ferns Glen Drive. I stand before you today as a representative of the local League of Women Voters of Tallahassee group. I am their local government committee chair, and we have been actively involved in the revisions of the land use and mobility element since the efforts began in earnest with the deep dives in 2019. The League is committed to working closely with the planning staff on the issues pertaining to the revisions of these two elements of the local government comprehensive plan. Either myself or Beth Hollister or one of the other League members have attended all of the deep dive public planning meetings held in 2019, and we supported concepts similar to smart growth policies and wrote a detailed letter itemizing the number of policies we hope to see in the revisions of these two elements. At the conclusion of that 2019 effort, as we're all well aware, the elected leaders decided to table the effort in support of a consultant being brought on board to assist the planning staff. It was also decided at that time that a League of League of Women Voters member and a representative of neighborhoods would be invited to sit on the RFP selection committee. Well, a good deal of time has passed, but we remember that commitment, and I stand before you tonight to remind everyone else of that commitment by planning staff and to encourage that our elected leaders make sure that the selection committee is a broad representative of the growth issues before us and the people representing all of those interests. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization watching out for the best interests of the entirety of Leon County. We look forward to being an involved part of the RFP selection committee and an active stakeholder in the comp plan revision process. As our local government moves towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions footprint while accommodating room for growth, the land use and mobility elements are important items laying out the expectations for future growth. Our growth expectations should be for resilient, equitable approaches toward land use and transportation practices that focus on green building approaches, multimodal transportation systems, walkable neighborhoods, and commercial districts that support the needs of the neighborhoods that they're situated within. It is the local government comprehensive plan which sets this stage. We encourage the consultant to focus on the data analysis needed to support our planning staff's recommendations for updated language, and that this be a highly collaborative effort as opposed to handing off the effort to a consultant and receiving a deliverable to decide to, wave up or down. Our planning staff needs to be involved as well. Our stakeholders need to be involved as well. We also encourage there be enough breadth of scope in the RFP to accommodate possible updates to other parts of the local government comprehensive plan, such as the conservation element. Now is the time to modify our elements to reflect the modern needs of today and our future. This is a critical task to complete before new developments are designed and permitted. And as a member of the League and a representative on their behalf tonight, I am honored to be a part of this effort. Thank you for continuing it forward.
Ms. Irwin, thank you very much for attending today. I think the second dose of my vaccine is kicking in. So you said it was basically one representative from the League of Women Voters and one representative from what other group?
Yes, Commissioner.
What was it? What was the second group that was a representative of?
A representative of neighborhood interests.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Irwin, thank you very much. I really appreciate you dialing in today. Mr. Deputy County Administrator, are there any other public speakers?
That was all, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, since this is an item for both the city and the county, what we'd like to do is then, again, we'll have people, speaker queue in terms of discussion will be visual, both from the county and the city. Anyone like to speak? Vice Chair Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Ian Smith for coming out tonight. I indulged Mr. Smith in his consideration to this matter to see if Florida State University had the moxie to actually engage and be a part of this review, which we're seeking a consultant. I believe that charity begins at home, and I know that as we approach the bicentennial year of Tallahassee, that it's important that we have the youthful ideals, student engagement, the sensitivities that they have for global warming, social equity, and overall environmental concerns. I'm appreciative of Mrs. Irwin's comments as well. But I think that what Mr. Smith said in our candid talks, his having reached out to Florida A&M, and I'm clear that what we do here in Tallahassee is that we're intellectual center, and what we do is that we develop minds and shape hearts. And I believe it's very important because he shared with me that other college towns, if you want to use that metaphor, it's a standard practice in many places that colleges that have a planning department or architectural units that they circulate and they keep students. And not just in the sense of the interning, which Mr. White shared with us at our last meeting, the interns who come from Florida State and who are part of the planning department. I am talking about the actual, not students coming in, but this being a part and under the review of the steep and deep engagement with the planning and the students and all of that. I'm interested in the costing down of this service as well. So I would like to suggest to us that students have paid in many ways to the support of our community. And this is a tangible way to afford those who will inherit this city the next 30, 40, 50 years to have a vision at the table reviewing our plan. This is why I'm asking us to involve FSU planning, FAMU's architect, or whatever they have to add, and that we would have them in this item to be augmented with, and I really don't care who the outside consultant is, but we ought stipulate that FSU's students and local factor, that intellectual energy, is a part with whoever wins it. It's my understanding that if we went with FSU to do this and we gave the students a chance to clean up the comp plan, review the comp plan, and change the to the, or the to the, they could do that. But it's very, very important. And if the Chinese proverb is correct, this could forge a brand new day in state for us in our community. And if that proverb that every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, then this item ought to be the step that will launch the 1,000-mile journey with this great entity that sits in our space. So I'm not making a motion now, but I am aware that Commissioner Lacey, her comments about this particular matter, that we get someone who's weighted, someone who's strong, and that we do a national reach out for as high a quality of person that we can find. I wanted to be an urban planner, but I waited too late to find out in school what I wanted to be. And having a good time up there, Nick, I didn't tell you about that. And but I realized when it was time to graduate that I wanted to be an urban planner, and it was too late. However, for those students whose appetites can be whet in the capital of Florida, it's excellent. Let us not bypass this moment, this chance to, I heard someone use the word collaboration. I don't care who we get, but let us do get FSU's planning to be a part, period. They have no stake in the game other than that they live here too. and that they would be able to help modify and even help a consultant who was from outside of here. And I mean, I've been teaching associated with Florida A&M Political Science Department for 35 years. And there's something fresh about students every semester, the optimism, the hope. And I've been able to maintain a certain energy because of the people I encounter 3 times a week. It's just vital that we give that energy a chance to breathe life into our future. And that's why I'm asking us to add to FSU planning as a part of that team of whoever we secure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. Next, I have Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, with due respect, I would be more than happy to wait and give our city colleagues a chance to chime in here. We could go back and forth. I will take direction from you and Mr. Mayor, but I just wanted to pause there to see if we wanted to break this up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's very thoughtful. Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Any comments, Mayor Daley?
Yeah, fully in support of option number 1 with the inclusion of students from the local universities. I think it's a great plan. Ready to move forward.
Mayor Daley, would you accept I know we're kind of crossing local governments here. Would you accept Madam County Attorney, should I wait until they proceed with their motion and vote on it before I try to, and then basically have a friendly amendment on or a motion on anything on this side that might be different?
I believe that we're just still in discussion and that then the votes will be taken separately, but.
Okay, I think I know how to make it work. Okay. Mayor Daley, I'm sorry, continue.
I'm fully in support of option number 1, and I like the presentation with the inclusion of the students in the universities. I think it's great.
One thing I might want to suggest, Mayor Daley, and this is something that we can talk about on our side if we need to have a motion, but Ms. Irwin did talk about a prior discussion with our department about a representative from the League of Women Voters as well as a representative from a neighborhood interest. And Mr. White, did you remember any discussion about that when it took place?
Yes, Chairman. When we were in the process of releasing the original RFP for this, we were putting together a selection committee. It would have been planning staff as well as staff from both of the city and county's respective growth management districts. But in addition to staff, we did release kind of a call for citizens who are interested to be on the selection committee. I know that the League of Women Voters was one of those who responded and was interested. I know that we were trying to make sure that we represented the community through various organizations, making sure that all parts of the community were represented in terms of the citizens who would have been on that committee. I don't believe we ever finalized for sure what the selection committee would look like, so I don't recall who else would have been on that. I could go back and look, but we definitely did want to engage citizens as well. Citizen engagement, public input was part of every step of the process for the land use and mobility element update, including hiring a consultant.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. I could see it being very constructive toward having those 2 positions being on the RFP selection committee. But Mayor, I don't want to interfere with the city commission's progress on the motion on the floor. But that's one thing I'm hoping that we might collectively consider.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
There's no motion.
We don't have a motion on
What's
the
that?
city or the county side at this point. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yeah, that's right.
There's no motions.
I think my second dose really is kind of starting to kick in, so I apologize for that. But yeah,
As a point of clarification, having students involved and having League of Women Voters and others involved in the selection process are 2 different things. There's the selection process, and then I think what Commissioner Proctor was saying is have the students involved in the planning that would take place with the consultant. So just
that's
so
correct. They are 2 different things. They are 2 different things. That's very.
And since I'm speaking on that, we want to be very careful. I'm in favor of having community groups be involved, but you don't want to exclude or not include some groups, because then when you start naming names, you start leaving people out, and that causes another issue. and it needs to be a very diverse and inclusive group that's going to plan our future city.
Nope, I understand. Commissioner Richardson.
Yeah, and that was my point as well. We need, if we're going to have a selection committee, it needs to be a diverse committee. I know we've got at least 2 neighborhood associations in this community that represent neighborhoods. And so if, we're going to start picking and choosing, we've got to have everybody involved. And it does need to be a committee that represents, to the degree possible, our entire community. The question that I had is if we're going to do an RFP, will it be written into the RFP that students be involved in some specific way? Or are we asking the winning company to simply involve the students in some way? I mean, how are we going to require that, number one, and enforce it, number 2? I would love to see them involved, but if it's not in the RFP, then how do we make that happen?
Ben.
I know.
That's what they're proposing. Request for proposals,
Is it in
if
there?
you look down, include students at local colleges and universities. So I'm assuming, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It's all right, it's okay. But I agree with where the mayor was going. So the RFP actually would include specifically the inclusion of students in the process. After the RFP selection was made, the actual consultant would come in and would involve the students in the process.
But
that's the way I read the RFP.
It's up to the winning contractor to determine how that involvement would occur.
That's my interpretation. Mr. White, is that how your team intended it?
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners. There could be a variety of ways that, we're not aware of, and the consultants may have connections with Florida State and FAMU already. I don't know who's going to propose, so I can't say for sure, but we would be looking for them in their proposal to tell us how they intend to engage the students and include them.
Okay.
Yeah, because I would be interested in, Chairman, that it be substantive involvement and a positive learning experience for the students, where they learn from the experience and are also able to contribute.
All right, thank you.
Not just, doing paperwork or running errands.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson.
Substantive.
I'm coming back to speaker's queue. I've got Commissioner Dozier, then Commissioner Proctor, and then Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this is challenging, and I'm feeling for you right now. So I hope we get it out of here soon. So, you can go take care of yourself.
I'm fine. Believe me, I can handle it.
Okay, I know you can.
Continue.
There you go.
Continue.
Vaccines are for a good cause, whether you're lucky and don't have symptoms or you do get symptoms like many of us. So, moving on. I really appreciate this conversation. And again, as you said, Commissioner Williams-Cox, they are 2 separate issues. So I'll speak to both of these. And then I got one other question. I am glad the students are included in the RFP. I think that was really important. And if I remember from our briefing correctly, Artie, after the RFP process goes through, the results of that process, the recommended firm, their proposal will be returned to both commissions to approve. And so at that time, we will see what their proposed approach is to working with students and citizen engagement and the rest of it. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. I don't remember exactly what that looks like when we bring the selected firm, but I know that it's usually a ranked list, and we'll include agenda materials with that as well. So I get long answer. The short
you would include their response to the RFP in our agenda materials, or at least yes.
I believe that's correct,
Okay.
Commissioner. Yes.
Okay. Well, with this discussion, I think we're all going to be interested to hear what the selected firm, the recommended firm, proposes on how they would approach working with the students. And I'm really glad. I think Commissioner Cummings, you were the one who brought that up last time. I'm glad it's in this and in the RFP. And Professor Smith, thank you for showing up today. I really do appreciate that, and hearing directly from Department of Urban and Regional Planning is great. So that's the first part. The second part on the selection committee itself, I 100% agree that we would have to represent diversity in our community. I also think it's challenging to represent all aspects of a very diverse community on a selection committee or on an RFP selection committee. So I'm wondering from you or from city or county staff, how exactly would you approach that? Do you need direction from us today? If you have previous direction for a neighborhood representative and League of Women Voters representative, then that would stand at a previous vote. But I think, again, Commissioner Williams-Cox, you brought up, different aspects of the community, different neighborhood groups may see things differently. So how would you approach that question?
We want to make sure that the selection committee represented both gender and ethnicity as evenly as possible, to make sure that we are not, just to be blunt, not a bunch of white guys choosing the consultant or.
We appreciate that too, but I think we're talking about diversity of areas of the community.
Oh, yes.
City, right?
Last time we reached specifically out to the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods, to representatives of the South Side, to the League of Women Voters. We wanted to make sure that it was representative also in addition to gender, ethnicity, but also geographic representation as well.
Okay. So you already have your direction. You don't need anything else from us. There will be citizens with that diversity in mind, all those different categories in your approach to the committee.
Unless you give us other direction, we'll continue that approach, Commissioner.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to check that. That was picking up on the two conversations. The last thing I wanted to mention here, in our briefing, you and Cherie and I discussed the schedule, that this is going to take some time, and the schedule, you will be asking respondents to the RFP to include their own schedule, kind of tell you how they think it will be done and when they will be complete. That would then dictate our comp plan cycle for taking up those changes. And you both suggested that it could be a standalone comp plan process, meaning it wouldn't be mixed up with all of our annual amendments. Did I say that all correctly so far?
That's correct, Commissioner, yes.
Okay. I really appreciated this discussion from my colleagues, city and county, and given how much we do during the comp plan cycle itself, but also how big this issue is going to be when it comes up, we know there's going to be a lot of involvement. I think we should perhaps go ahead and give direction now, or when that RFP comes back, I would love to see it today, to have this come in a standalone comp plan process, and to include a workshop with us before we get into the formal process, which has a very, consistent schedule, I would say. One workshop, and then we move on to public hearings. I'd like at least 2 workshops, if not another time for hearing public comments. So that part, I think we could work out later, but I think a standalone comp plan process to separate this from our annual amendments would be helpful. And with that, Mr. Chair, now that my iPad is turned off here, if you're ready for a motion from the county side, just to kick this off, I will make a motion for option 1 and for whatever schedule that is ultimately approved to have a standalone comprehensive plan process for these changes when they come back.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Is there a second on the motion on the county side? Seconded by Commissioner Maddox. Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Vice Chair Proctor.
Thank you, and I would defer to Commissioner Williams-Cox instead. I want to ask her if she would walk with me and clean up and pick up if I drop the ball and hear what I'm saying, Commissioner. I'm asking you. But to Commissioner Richardson's question, how functionally could this occur? Commissioner Richardson, I think that in this matter, we could do an MOU with Florida State as a standalone. And we establish Florida State in this RFP that they will be a part of this. And the issue is that consultant, can you flex adapt, go with and interact with Florida State. That's their burden. As it's listed there on the board, to include students at the local colleges and university, Commissioner Williams-Cox, what I see in that is that it's almost like making the FSU component, here come apples and oranges, but it's almost like making them like a subcontractor like a WMBE. And our educational component of planning at Florida State is not the subcontractor. They're fully capable of being the prime in this instance. They just don't bid out. They got the degrees, the qualifications. Most of all, they know this particular city pretty well. This locale is one that they do know. Someone from out of town, from Seattle, San Diego, we've had proposals, Alan, you remember we had from Texas with the primary health. Those folk came here and told us stuff. But Florida State is us. They know us. They've been us for a long time, and they will be us well into the future. That's my confidence there. But in terms of structuring them, not as an addendum, but this is going to be two primes, two co-primes. We could set that memorandum of understanding, and they are not a WMBE appendage, but a full interactive player. And those roles can be specified at some date as to what their strengths are, and they may mirror one another very, very well. So I thought your question, Commissioner Richardson, was exquisitely context properly, and I hope that I have blundered to give some modest model of how this could occur. And so I know that our attorney, and I believe that y'all's attorney, them two attorneys get together. Ooh, there it is. It'll happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. Commissioner Williams-Cox, did you still want to speak?
I do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. What I wanted to say was, first of all, we should not rely on the winning consultants to tell us how they would involve our students. It needs to be a part of the requirement for the RFP to tell them how they will involve our students and let them respond to that requirement in the RFP to help us understand and be able to see how they would do it. You know, my experience with purchasing is that you tell people what you want to buy and they offer up what they have to sell. So we should tell them how we want them to engage with our students in this process. My second thing is that I understand that Florida State does have urban and planning, and then that's great. And I heard FAMU school architecture being mentioned once, but we want to make sure that there's going to be a couple. We're not going to decouple the Florida State students and the FAMU students, and if TCC has students, we want to include them as well because they're going to be here. This is their town also. So I want to make sure that when we say students from the universities and colleges, that's plural, and we're going to make sure that they all of them are involved in whether it be the school of architecture at FAMU, school of business, whatever, because they all can play a role. Just like Commissioner Proctor, you mentioned that it was too late for you to decide on your major because it was time to graduate. You may have students who are in majors because mom and dad are tired of paying for it and they got to finish school, but they really are planners. So we don't want to limit ourselves to that because even planners need to have other people surround them to help them not be tunnel vision about the future. So I would, again, venture to say that we need to put it in RFP what we want and let the contractor consultants respond to it. But we also need to make sure that we're irrespective students, regardless of the universities that they come from or the colleges that they come from, TCC, FAMU, FSU, they're all needed and wanted because this is going to be their town one day.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Mr. Chairman, a point of information. Commissioner Dozier, that's the spirit of what Commissioner Williams-Cox, that's why I asked her to walk with me, and she said it way better than me. That's the idea, and does that, your motion embraces those elements of her speech right then? Is that true?
Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, I'm struggling with this a little bit because we asked for the inclusion of students at the last meeting, and I am very glad that in the RFP it will say you should work with FAMU and FSU students and find a way to do that. I don't feel comfortable giving any more, I don't know what other direction we would give to our staff right now to tell the respondents how to do that in this meeting. And forgive me, but we've waited a long time to get to this point, and I would like to move forward with the RFP process. And it's been 6 years since we introduced this. So I think it is a critical issue, absolutely, and I'm very glad that it is.
What she said. Did you hear Commissioner Williams?
I absolutely did, sir. And what I'm saying is, with respect, Commissioner Williams-Cox, you're saying that we tell people what we want and they respond to that RFP. I'm not sure in this meeting right now we can say exactly what those students should be doing as part of this contract. And so I think the language that staff has included is sufficient to tell respondents, you will be doing this, and just like the schedule, just like the citizen engagement piece, it is up for them to say how they're going to do it and for that committee to judge those different respondents.
Okay, I heard.
If there is another option here from staff, from the commissions, I'm willing to entertain it, but I don't know how much more specific we can get tonight, and I would very much like to move this item forward tonight.
Mr. Chair, on point.
But I'm sorry, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
We're on a point
Yeah.
and then on a point. So let's finish up with Commissioner Dozier's comments.
Yes, the last piece here is the reason why I asked Artie the question to confirm that this will come back to us, that the recommended firm, their response will come back to us before approval, is because I know we're all going to want to see those details. I think that's a really critical part, and we could ask more questions at that time. So for that reason, I don't know how else to amend the motion at this point for the county side. I'm willing to hear the discussion, but I think we've got enough in there right now to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Maddox, and then Commissioner Porter, and then Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not, Commissioner Williams-Cox was on point with Dozier.
Well, but see, Commissioner Maddox is also in the queue directly related to something Commissioner Dozier has said.
Before you do that, thank you. I actually participated a long time ago when I thought I was going to get a master's in urban planning. Imagine that. With a group of students who now some are actually developers, one of which is a developer here in town. But we did a PUD for a city up in Michigan. They basically sent it to us. It was like 10 different schools that did it, competition style, and we actually ended up winning. And it was pretty cool to see it done that way. But I say all that to say, I think where Commissioner Williams-Cox is going is exactly the right direction to go. And us defining for the company is, or defining in the RFP how we want the company to work with our universities. Absolutely. And the great part about it is that we don't have to come up with the process of how that's done, because I just spoke to Professor Smith, and he just told me that he's seen it done. And so what I was going to suggest is that we work with our universities and our professors to help us create the language for how how those companies would work with our universities. And if we get no responses, then we just go back to the street. But at least let's put it in there and let's back off of it if we need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a substitute motion for option 1 with all those things. Okay, thank you. If you will.
Thank you.
Mr. Dozier.
What my problem was is I didn't know what other specifics we wanted to add
Okay,
in.
got it.
If we could amend the motion to say, because this RFP needs to be drafted,
Right.
for our staff to work with Department of Urban and Regional Planning and the School of Architecture to articulate how students can work with the responsive firms.
Right.
I am comfortable with that.
That's
And
exactly-
that we don't need to be writing an RFP among ourselves here.
Right.
And there's issues with showing that RFP and before the kind of, all of that, right? Before it's released and the fairness questions. So
Great.
is that acceptable?
That's exactly, that's
Okay.
what I went down to talk to professionals.
Okay.
That's exactly what my amendment was going, my motion was going to be, is that we work with them since they've seen it done.
Okay.
If you accept it as an amendment, then there's no need for a substitute.
Just to clean this up, option one, standalone comp plan process once the study is complete, and directing staff to work with the Department of Urban and Regional Planning and the FAMU School of Architecture to articulate within the RFP how respondents could work with students at both universities. That would be my
Okay.
motion.
That's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Last thing I'll say is,
The second approves? Were you the
yes,
second?
of course.
Yeah, he's
of course.
second too, Bruce.
I didn't know if we.
Yeah. Just to be clear, everything that's under request for a proposal will be included in the RFP, correct? This is a staff question,
Mr. White.
Yeah.
That's correct, Commissioner.
along with the amended piece that we talked about.
That's correct.
All right, great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, next in the queue, we have Commissioner Porter and then Commissioner Williams-Cox, and then I will wrap it up. Commissioner Porter.
Thank you. I agree with everything that's been said. I was going to say, I know that the folks at FSU and FAMU have done this before. I feel confident that they will know how to help us craft this. Is it something also that we might want to include in our selection criteria? Because if it's not something that we weigh, and I've never been through this, so I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I've read RFPs and what those weighted criteria are. If it's something that is that important to us, that's something that we should consider as well, to make sure that it's weighted accordingly when we are reviewing the applications.
Thank you, Commissioner Porter. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you to Commissioner Maddox for clarifying what I was trying to say. So I don't have anything else to add.
Great, thank you, ma'am, very much. Okay, Mr. White, I had a quick question for you. This is not related to students. When you and I had our briefing the other day, we discussed, and Cherie was there too. We discussed the RFP, the original RFP, and the draft that you have now. I'd asked you about some of the information that I'd like to see coming back from the consultants, along the lines of an analysis of how projected housing type demand 10 years from now. What's the level of unmet housing need 10, 20 years from now, and commercial property, and possible areas where that growth might be suitable for, right? Just for the record, so all that, both you expect that to be an RFP, and then that in turn to be part of the consultant analysis that comes back to us, correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that would be part of the analyses that we would outline that we would want the consultant to respond to, and it would be included in the project.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Vice Chair Proctor.
Point of information, that last piece you articulated, is that like germane to a comp plan? I'm just curious to.
Yes, sir. You've got more experience in comp plans than I do, but for me, I think that's an essential. I need to know what the projected housing demand might be.
In the
I need to know
comp
what
plan?
projected commercial property demand might be, as a way to kind of help form context of what type of comp plan we're going to need.
See, this is what I emphasize is the danger there for us to put that study there, or to say that we know. Are we also not loading the gun and cocking the trigger to direct legally, and we're suggesting nuance or even just bald-faced telling the comp plan we're going to meet these needs because this is what the pattern. So our successors may feel compelled that we've laid out, because we put those studies there, that we're going in that direction. And I don't think that we loaded up the comp plan with that kind of information. I just think it should be a little bit more generic.
Vice Chair Proctor, I respect what you're saying. I don't see the analysis being done or interpreted that way or used in that way. Let me just discuss an example. Let's say that, and this is an extreme example, but just to illustrate the point. Let's say that the consultant analysis says there's really no demand for commercial property in the next 20 years. That's an extreme example. That's not going to happen. But what that would then inform us would be, it would help us understand what the demand for any new commercial property might be with regard to zoning and future land use. So we would use that as a way to inform us about what we expect. In the best case we can discern, the best predictions, what the demands will be in this community, in this county for the next 10, 20 years, because that can inform us on where we need to focus our attention on where we want to grow and how.
Well, I can appreciate what your point is, but I just don't want the specificity that compels a certain direction. I'm well comfortable noting that the likelihood that North Carolina, Texas, and Florida are going to pick up additional House seats. Our growth is phenomenal. It's secure. And I believe that exponentially our rate of growth is, the curve is just going to blow off the hinges in the next 12, 15 years. So it's coming. But in terms of information that you're asking to be placed in the comp plan, I'm not certain what it would serve. But
So, Vice Chair Proctor, let me clarify. I'm not suggesting that goes in the comp plan. I'm suggesting that as part of the consultant's analysis that comes back to us to help inform us on how the comp plan is constructed.
Thank you, sir.
You know, it's like, for example, we know that projections are that over the next 25 years, Leon County will grow by 55,000 people.
Okay.
That may be true.
You helped me. I
get it.
Yeah, you distilled that it won't be in there. That's perfect.
That's right, absolutely, sir. That helps inform us on what the lay of the land is going to look like, pardon the pun, over the next 10, 20 years, because that will inform us on what we should do for the comp plan.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Maddox. Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right, so this will be a county vote. All in favor of the motion as stated by Commissioner Dozier and then seconded by Commissioner Maddox with the friendly amendment? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Jackson out of chambers, so the tally is 6-0. Mr. White, would you please introduce the next item?
Did we?
I believe we need to.
Did we not vote on this?
Very similar motion on the city side. Probably moved
We
by
thought we spoke for the
Commissioner Richardson. Is
Second.
there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Williams Cox. Open it up for discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Mr. White, will you please introduce the next item?
Okay, the next item is the proposed community engagement strategy for the update to the Southside Action Plan, and I'll actually hand it over to Devin Levins for this item.
Thanks, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so we are here tonight to look at ratifying what we talked about at the last workshop, and that is to get the Southside Action Plan community engagement strategy underway. So, again, a short presentation from me. You guys are going to get tired of seeing me so quickly.
Move option one.
Move out.
Second.
Is that, okay.
We're ready to make a motion on our side.
Mayor, go ahead. Let me hand it over to you.
Probably moved by Commissioner Williams Cox, seconded by Commissioner Richardson and Commissioner Matlow. Any further comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0.
Great.
Catch.
Mayor, Commissioner Maddox has made a motion to approve staff recommendation, seconded by Vice Chair Proctor. Any discussion on the motion from the county side? All right, all those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Jackson out of chambers. The tally is 6-0. And that concludes our business for this evening. Mayor, City Commissioners, thank you very much for coming over. Really appreciate it. Have a good evening. Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. All right, thank you very much. Have a good night.